Friends, imagine a world not so different from our own, where sounds fill the air. We hear music, laughter, the buzz of the city, or the quiet rustle of leaves. But what if there was someone who could hear more? What if they could hear the quiet sighs of old houses, the lonely calls of empty wells, or the forgotten songs of long-ago places? Tonight, I want to tell you about Ilara, a woman with a gift so unique, so incredibly special, it changed everything for her village. She didn't have magic spells or super strength. Her power was in her ears and in her heart, for she was the map maker of sounds. Get ready to discover how the most silent places held the loudest secrets, and how one woman, by simply listening, saved everyone. Are you ready to hear her story? The map maker of sounds, Ilara's quiet gift. Ilara wasn't born with a silver spoon in her mouth or with any special powers that made her fly or become invisible. Her gift was much quieter, much more gentle. She could hear things others couldn't. Not just the usual noises, like people chattering in the market or the distant sound of a cowbell. Ilara could truly listen to the sounds of forgotten places. Imagine an old, empty house, standing silent and still for many, many years. Most people would just see peeling paint and dusty rooms. But Ilara, she could distinctly hear the old wooden floors groaning softly, like they were tired from holding up the house for so long, telling tales of the countless footsteps they'd borne. She could hear the empty fireplace sighing, a low, sad sound, remembering the warmth of the roaring fires it once held, and the laughter that echoed around it. And when she stood by a lonely old well, a place where water once flowed freely, she could almost hear it making sounds for water, feeling incredibly thirsty and sad, longing for the cool liquid it once contained. When Ilara was just a little girl, this special ability made her feel different, a bit like an outsider. Other children played noisy games, running and shouting, but Ilara would often stop, her head tilted, completely lost in thought, listening to the wind telling secrets as it rustled through the leaves of the big trees. Or she'd insist that the old stone steps of the village temple were sharing stories from a long, long time ago, tales of the many feet that had climbed them, seeking peace or making wishes. Grown-ups would just smile kindly and say, "Oh, Ilara has such a big imagination." But deep down, Ilara knew it was much more than just imagining. It was a real, strong connection to the world around her. Because people didn't quite understand her words or how deep what she experienced was, Ilara found another, more beautiful way to show what she heard. She started to draw, but her drawings weren't like regular maps that show roads, mountains, and rivers that everyone can see. Her maps were something truly unique. They were maps of sounds, of feelings, of the very soul of places. On her maps, a gentle, swirling line might represent the sad, low hum of an empty old factory building where people used to work, a sound of the machines that once whirred and the voices that once filled its halls. A sharp, jagged star could mark the echo of a loud battle that had taken place ages ago on a quiet field, a lingering feeling of conflict in the peaceful landscape. Every single line, every symbol, every shade on her maps told a big story from the world that only she could truly hear and understand. Ilara lived a quiet, normal life in a small, forgotten corner of the village. During the day, she would wander along quiet paths less used, listening carefully, taking in the silent histories around her. At night, she would sit hunched over her paper, carefully and patiently drawing all the quiet sounds and hidden stories she had collected throughout the day. For Ilara, her maps weren't just art. They were about keeping stories safe, about making sure that the past wasn't completely lost. She truly believed that every place, even the smallest, most quiet corner, had a rich story to tell, a memory to share. And if no one listened, truly listened, those stories would just disappear forever, like smoke going away in the air. A time of deep trouble. One very hot, dry summer, something terrible happened. There was no rain for many, many weeks, stretching into months. The sun beat down strongly, turning everything dry and hard. The village, which was usually green and full of life, began to feel like a dusty, empty desert. The wells, which usually bubbled with fresh, life-giving water, were empty, dry, and cracked, their depths showing only mud. The once green fields where food grew so well turned brown and withered, their crops dying off, leaving the villagers with very little to eat. Everyone in the village was scared and sad, their faces showing worry and no hope. People tried everything they could think of. They asked wise old shamans for their guidance and help. They prayed strongly to many different gods, hoping for a miracle, but nothing seemed to work. The sky stayed a never-ending, clear blue. The sun just kept shining, and the earth stayed dry and did not respond. Alara, as she always did, was listening, not just with her ears, but with her whole self. And then she heard it. It was a very faint, almost impossible to hear sound, a soft, continuous murmur coming from deep inside the dry earth. It was a sound unlike any she had heard before, filled with a strong feeling of wanting. It was like many ancient underground rivers and springs were speaking at once, their calls coming from deep below, promising comfort and help if someone could only find them, if someone could only hear their call. Suddenly, Alara's special maps, usually her private world, felt very urgent and important. She carefully checked her sound maps, her fingers tracing the detailed lines and symbols. She also carefully looked at some old pictures of the ground deep below that she had quietly found over the years, very interested in the hidden parts of the earth. She put them together, trying to find a perfect match, a coming together of what was seen and what was not seen. Her finger slowly, carefully moved across her paper, following the soft, calling sounds, until it stopped at one very specific spot. It was a seemingly ordinary place at the very edge of the village, a small, dusty patch where only a few dry, prickly bushes bravely managed to grow. The sound that saved the village. When Alara bravely showed the villagers her spot, their first reaction was not believing her, even laughing a little. "You want us to dig here?" they asked, their voices showing doubt. "Just because you heard the ground talking?" "That sounds like just a story, Alara." They chuckled nervously, their hope almost gone. But they were so desperate, so completely without other options, and seeing the quiet, firm belief in Alara's usually quiet eyes, the oldest and wisest man in the village slowly agreed. "All right," he sighed. "Let's try. We have nothing left to lose, and maybe Alara sees something we don't." For many long, hard days, under the strong, hot sun, the villagers dug and dug. It was incredibly hard work, making their backs ache and making them very tired. People started to lose hope again. "This is silly," some said quietly, their voices full of being upset. "There's no water here. We're wasting our last bit of strength." But just when their hope began to get weak and people started talking more about giving up, one of the pickaxes hit something different, something soft and giving, deep in the ground. Then, with a grand, happy gush and a loud splash, cool, clear water burst out of the earth. It sprayed high into the air, shining in the sunlight, filling the air with a happy roar that echoed through the valley. For Alara, it wasn't just the sound of water. It was the happy singing sound of a free spring. Finally out from its underground prison, a song of pure joy and relief. The whole village shouted in happiness. People cried tears of joy, hugging each other. The long, scary, dry time was finally over. Water flowed again, bringing life back to their homes, their fields, their very souls. And Alara, the quiet woman who had always listened to the world's unheard voices, was no longer seen as just odd. She was now honored as the map-maker of sounds, the one who had, with her unique and deep gift, truly brought life back from the very edge of silence and no hope. Her special maps, once thought of as just drawings from a too active mind, were now loved and respected, a strong sign of the incredible power of truly listening, not just with ears, but with the very heart, to the hidden language of the world.